English is not just a language. It is a bridge between hesitation and confidence, a bridge between who you are today and who you want to become tomorrow. And the truth is simple. You don't become fluent by studying English. You become fluent by living it. Many people wait. They wait for the perfect vocabulary. They wait until their grammar is flawless. They wait until they feel ready. But readiness is not a feeling. It is a decision. The moment you open your mouth and speak, even with broken words, you begin your transformation. Consistency is the real foundation of speaking English like a pro, not perfection, not memorizing long grammar rules, and not waiting for the right moment, when everything suddenly feels easy. The truth is that fluency does not appear in a single day of hard work, and it does not come from pressure or overthinking. It grows quietly, step by step, through repeated action that may feel small in the beginning, but becomes powerful over time. When someone decides to speak even a few sentences every single day, they are actually training their mind to accept English as a natural part of expression instead of something foreign or forced. That small daily effort slowly removes fear, because fear survives in silence, and silence breaks when words start flowing, even if they're imperfect. Many learners believe that they should first become perfect and then start speaking. But that idea delays progress more than anything else, because perfection is not a starting point. It is something that develops after thousands of small attempts that were not perfect at all. Every fluent speaker has a history of broken sentences, repeated mistakes, and moments of hesitation. But what made the difference was not avoiding those moments. It was continuing despite them. Speaking a little every day creates familiarity, and familiarity builds confidence, and confidence reduces hesitation. Even 5 minutes of speaking out loud to yourself, describing your surroundings, your thoughts, or your plans, starts shaping your brain to respond in English instead of translating from another language. That shift is not immediate, but it is real, and it becomes stronger with repetition. When practice is done daily, the mind stops treating English as a subject and starts treating it as a communication tool. This transformation cannot happen in a single long study session once a week, because inconsistency resets progress. The brain needs repetition to form strong language pathways, and those pathways are built through daily exposure and daily use. Speaking regularly also changes the relationship a person has with mistakes. At first, mistakes feel like failure, something to hide or avoid. But with consistency, mistakes begin to lose their emotional weight. They become normal, expected, even useful, because each mistake shows exactly what needs improvement. A person who speaks every day begins to understand that fluency is not the absence of mistakes, but the ability to continue speaking despite them. This mindset shift is one of the most important parts of becoming fluent, because it removes the pressure of being perfect and replaces it with the freedom to practice openly. Over time, the voice becomes more stable, sentences become more natural, and thinking starts adjusting itself without effort. Even the way confidence appears changes, because it is no longer forced or temporary. It becomes built into routine. The key is not how much you speak in one day, but how regularly you return to speaking again and again, even when motivation is low or progress feels slow. Some days the sentences may feel clear, and other days they may feel broken. But both days carry value because both are part of the same process. The habit of showing up daily creates discipline, and discipline creates improvement that does not depend on mood or external encouragement. Gradually, English stops feeling like something to prepare for and starts becoming something that is already available inside the mind, ready to be used at any moment without hesitation creeping in before every sentence. Silencing fear is the first real step towards speaking English with confidence. Because fear is not a language problem, it is a mindset barrier that quietly controls how a person speaks, pauses, and even thinks before speaking. Many learners already know basic words, simple grammar, and common sentence structures, yet they still hesitate when it comes to speaking. And the reason is not lack of knowledge, but the presence of fear that says, "What if I make a mistake?" Or, "What if people judge me?" This fear creates an invisible lock on the voice, and that lock keeps a person stuck in silence, even when they have something to say. Breaking that silence does not require perfection. It requires courage to begin speaking even when the mind feels uncertain. Every time a person chooses to speak despite fear, they weaken that fear. And every time they stay silent, they strengthen it. That is why action is more powerful than hesitation, even if the action is imperfect. Mistakes are often seen as failure, but in reality, they are part of the learning process, and without them, fluency cannot grow. When a person speaks and makes mistakes, they are not going backward, they are actually identifying where improvement is needed. Fear makes mistakes feel heavy, but experience makes them feel normal, and that shift only happens through repeated exposure. Speaking English is not a test of intelligence. It is a practice of expression, and expression cannot exist fully under fear. The moment a learner accepts that mistakes are allowed, the pressure inside the mind starts to reduce and speech becomes more natural. Confidence does not appear before speaking, it appears because of speaking. It is built in real time, sentence by sentence, not in theory but in action. Even short sentences spoken aloud can begin to weaken fear, because the brain slowly learns that speaking does not lead to danger or failure. At the beginning, the voice may shake, words may stop, and thoughts may feel scattered. But these are not signs of weakness. They are signs of transition from hesitation to fluency. Fear also grows when a person compares themselves to fluent speakers, but comparison only increases pressure and reduces expression. Every fluent speaker once struggled, and their current fluency is the result of repeated practice, not natural perfection. When learners understand this, they stop seeing fluent speakers as unreachable and start seeing them as people who simply continued practicing longer. Speaking without fear requires a shift in focus from "How correct am I?" to "How clearly am I expressing myself?" Because communication is more important than perfection. Even broken English carries meaning, and meaning is the real goal of language. When the focus moves from judgment to communication, fear starts to lose its control. Another important part of silencing fear is accepting silence itself as something temporary, not permanent. A pause during speaking does not mean failure. It simply means the mind is processing, and with time those pauses become shorter and less frequent. Fear also decreases when speaking becomes a habit instead of a rare activity, because repetition builds familiarity, and familiarity reduces nervousness. The more often a person speaks, the less strange it feels, and what once felt intimidating slowly becomes normal behavior. Eventually, the mind stops reacting strongly to speaking situations, and confidence starts appearing naturally without forced effort. This transformation is not sudden, it is gradual, but it is real, and every attempt to speak adds to it. Even the imperfect once thinking in English instead of translating is one of the most powerful shifts a learner can make. Because translation creates delay, confusion, and hesitation, while direct thinking creates flow, clarity, and speed. When a person constantly translates from their native language into English, their mind is forced to take extra steps before speaking, and those extra steps break the natural rhythm of communication. A simple thought becomes complicated, not because it is difficult, but because it is being processed twice. First in one language, then converted into another, and during that conversion, confidence begins to drop and hesitation begins to rise. This habit is very common, especially for learners who have studied English through grammar rules and written exercises, but have not practiced real speaking regularly. The mind becomes trained to analyze language instead of using it, and as a result, speaking feels slow and unnatural. Breaking this habit requires conscious effort at the beginning, because the brain is already comfortable with translating, and changing that pattern feels uncomfortable. However, that discomfort is a sign of growth, not failure. The goal is to train the mind to form thoughts directly in English, even if those thoughts are simple at first. Instead of trying to express complex ideas immediately, a learner can begin with basic, everyday sentences such as describing what they are doing, what they are feeling, or what they are planning next. These small thoughts create a foundation, and with repetition, that foundation becomes stronger. Over time, the mind starts responding in English automatically without needing to switch languages. This automatic response is what creates fluency, because it removes the pause between thinking and speaking. At the beginning, the sentences may feel limited and vocabulary may seem insufficient. But limitation is not a problem. It is part of the process. The mind expands its vocabulary naturally when it is used consistently, and forcing complex words too early only increases pressure. Simplicity allows continuity, and continuity builds fluency. Another important aspect of thinking in English is exposure. The more a person listens to English through conversations, videos, or audio, the more their brain becomes familiar with natural sentence structures and expressions. This exposure feeds the mind with patterns, and those patterns begin to appear in thoughts without conscious effort. Instead of constructing sentences word by word, the mind starts recognizing ready-made structures, and this recognition speeds up communication. Reading also plays a role, because it introduces new words and phrases in context, making them easier to recall during speaking. However, the real transformation happens when input is combined with output, when listening and reading are followed by speaking and thinking. Passive learning alone cannot create fluency, because fluency requires active use. Thinking in English throughout the day, even during simple activities like walking, eating, or planning tasks, strengthens this habit. The more often the mind practices this, the more natural it becomes. Gradually, the need to translate fades away, and English starts becoming the default language for thought in certain situations. This does not mean forgetting the native language. It means creating a separate space for English where thoughts can exist independently. This separation reduces confusion and allows faster expression. There will be moments when the mind struggles to find the right words, and in those moments, the learner may feel the urge to return to translation, but resisting that urge and finding simpler ways to express the idea is what builds true fluency. Paraphrasing, using known vocabulary, and keeping sentences simple are effective strategies during this phase. Over time, these strategies become natural, and communication becomes smoother. The transition from translation to direct thinking is not instant, it is gradual, but each small effort contributes to it. And every moment spent thinking in English strengthens the brain's ability to respond quickly and clearly without interruption. Practicing out loud with emotion transforms English from a mechanical exercise into a living form of expression. Because language is not only about words and grammar, it is also about tone, feeling, and confidence carried through the voice. Many learners spend a lot of time reading silently or thinking quietly, and while that helps with understanding, it does not fully prepare the voice to communicate in real situations. Speaking is a physical skill as much as it is a mental one, and like any physical skill, it improves with active use. When words are spoken out loud, the brain, mouth, and ears begin to work together, creating a stronger connection that silent practice cannot build. The voice becomes familiar with the rhythm of English, the pronunciation becomes clearer, and the hesitation between words begins to reduce. Speaking out loud also exposes areas that need improvement, such as unclear pronunciation or uneven pacing, which may not be noticeable during silent reading. This awareness is important because it allows a learner to adjust and refine their speech in real time. Emotion plays an equally important role in this process because emotion gives life to words and makes communication feel natural instead of forced. When a person speaks with feeling, their sentences become more expressive and their confidence becomes more visible. Even simple sentences can sound powerful when delivered with the right tone and energy. Without emotion, speech often feels flat and uncertain. Even if the grammar is correct, adding emotion does not mean exaggeration. It means connecting with what is being said and allowing that connection to reflect in the voice. Practicing this regularly helps the speaker sound more natural and engaging. One effective way to build this habit is to imagine real situations while speaking, such as explaining something to a friend, sharing an opinion, or telling a story. This imagination creates context, and context makes speech more meaningful. Instead of repeating random sentences, the learner begins to communicate ideas, and communication naturally includes emotion. Recording the voice is another powerful technique because it provides an opportunity to listen objectively and notice both strengths and weaknesses. At first, hearing one's own voice may feel uncomfortable, but that discomfort fades with time, and it becomes a valuable tool for improvement. Listening to recordings helps identify whether the speech sounds confident, whether the words are clear, and whether the tone matches the message. This self-feedback creates awareness, and awareness leads to progress. Repetition also plays a key role in speaking practice, because repeating phrases and sentences builds muscle memory in the mouth and increases fluency over time. The more a sentence is practiced, the easier it becomes to say it without thinking. This does not mean memorizing long scripts, but rather becoming comfortable with common expressions and patterns that appear frequently in conversation. As these patterns become familiar, speaking requires less effort, and the focus can shift from forming sentences to expressing ideas. Practicing out loud regularly also reduces fear, because the act of speaking becomes normal instead of intimidating. The voice gains strength, and confidence grows naturally as a result of consistent use. Over time, the learner begins to trust their ability to communicate. Even if the language is not perfect, that trust is essential because confidence allows speech to flow more freely. Speaking with emotion, clarity, and repetition turns practice into performance, and performance into habit, and habit into fluency.